Okay, we are rolling. Take whatever now. So, welcome to my first Q&A video. In my last video, I asked for questions so I could, for the first time, kind of answer people's questions. And so, thanks everybody for asking questions and leaving comments in the last video. I'll do my best to go through them. I will apologize in advance for a few things. One, for any mispronunciations of names. Two, for not jumping down the rabbit holes too much with some of these questions, because I'll admit some of these questions were pretty good, and I could go on and on and on about them. I tend to have the gift of gab and kind of talk quite a lot about things. So I'm gonna have to try and limit myself though, because in doing a few takes of this video, I've learned that because I'm filming just on my phone here, I've learned that after about 30 minutes, I have problems with the memory and it doesn't want to save. I've had some technical issues, but anyway, I'm going to try to get through it in under 30 minutes. So this is a slightly longer, this is my first kind of longer type video where I get to just kind of ramble about lots of different stuff. So get comfortable, grab yourself a drink or what have you, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and away we go. I'm just going to start in chronological order. I have the comments here in front of me on my laptop. I'll start from the oldest ones to the newest ones. Um, and the first one is from John Adam, who says, "Stay safe, Caesar. We're all bummed out as you are, but with hope for the future." Yeah, thanks for that. Yes, the outdoor community in general, backpackers, etc., are having to cancel lots of plans so we can commiserate together. But let us have hope because the trails, the mountains, they're all going to be there after this is over. So there is hope. Thank you for that. Next up is William Breitenbach, who says, "Thanks for the video, Caesar." Well, thank you for your feedback and for asking questions. What type of meditation do you practice and what benefits have you noticed? Aha. And I guess I should also, this is a good time to remind everyone that in the description below, I'm going to have some links to some other videos I'm referencing or some other links or whatever. So I have a pad and paper here. I'm going to actually take notes. So I put them in chronological order, what links to go. So the first thing is going to be meditation. I've done a few videos on this in the past, so I'll link to those where you can watch those, and I go into detail about the kind of meditation that I practice and the benefits that I have noticed. To recap briefly now, I practice an active kind of meditation that is similar to like in the martial arts, specifically Japanese kind of Zen martial art concept of Mushin. I'm probably mispronouncing that as well, but the concept of nothingness or just acting without thinking and being, fully aware. It's in contrast to traditional type meditation where you sit and you close your eyes and you focus on breathing. I do that as well on occasion, but I prefer to do the hiking, meditating at the same time kind of thing. And benefits, many of them, and that's not just me, but you're welcome to Google, the benefits, the concrete benefits of meditation. There have been studies, there's biochemistry involved. It's not like just a kind of alternative woo-woo spiritual thing. There's science behind meditation, which I mentioned also in my past discussions of meditation. You'll have to forgive me too. I'm going to be looking down at the questions a lot. Sorry about that if it's a bit awkward, but that's the best I can do here with my humble setup. Here I'm not a pro YouTuber, so I don't have a nice camera, nice mic, nice setup. Yeah. But yes, just to kind of cap off on the benefits, and also encourage people to try meditation. One benefit is, patience. I saw a documentary recently where there was a monk who they'd scanned his brain while he was doing meditation, and it was very interesting to see that his centers of in the brain, where the brain processes empathy, seem to light up. So that may suggest that it helps you to be a more empathetic person. But the monk, talked about, and I could relate to this, patience, that it's a great practice of patience. That one thing that for people that are new to meditation get frustrated with is while you're trying to meditate or you're trying to clear your mind, having intrusive thoughts or other things kind of distract you. That's a natural, normal part of the process. And like anything else, it takes practice. And as to paraphrase this monk, he said, you know, having the patience to take a thought and put it away, or take it away 10,000 times, thousands of times, is a very great way to practice patience. So that is one great benefit, but there are many. Yes. There are more questions here from William. Is there any gear that you wish existed? Yeah, sure. There's lots. I like to speculate on the future of gear, and especially now where um, things are changing very rapidly. There are new fabrics every year. There are new like methods. There's new designs. So things are happening very quickly. So I'll limit myself just to a few different things. Because in general, I'm actually pretty happy with my gear setup. I'm pretty happy with my gears, lists that I have, which I've written about in detail on my blog and I've done videos on. So that last video, like 2 videos ago, before the lockdowns, really got into effect, my like 3 season gear list, I'm very very happy with. But I would say the one thing that stands out are shoes. I really wish there were better shoes, specifically better lighter weight, minimalist or drop zero shoes that are high top and mesh and breathe well and have a wide toe box. I know I'm kind of listing quite a lot of things. There's a laundry list of things I would like in a shoe, but hey, it's I don't see this as impossible. I don't think this is certainly within the realm of possibility. Have a minimalist type shoe. Think just uh, quickly kind of conceptualize this. The Morel Trail Gloves are a shoe that I have and I like, but they're low tops. A high top version of that would be nice. I could get into the reasons why I like to have a high top shoe when I hike. My current shoe of choice for hiking is the Lems Boulder boots, and I like them, but they don't breathe. They're like a bit on the heavier side, though they are a lightweight boot. And yeah, I would prefer like the mesh of the trail gloves. So, but yeah, I have many reasons why I prefer a high top. In short, it's because here where I hike, I often go on isolated trails or I go off trail and do bushwhacking, and it's nice to have your ankles and protected. And I like to use gaiters along with my high top shoes and my pants, because I like that, because I always wear pants also for the reason of brush and thorns and all these things. I want to protect my legs, and then bugs too, like ticks and mosquitoes and all these different bugs. So I like using this combination of high top shoe and gaiters and then pants, and the cuffs of the pants get protected by the gaiters. It all works well for me. Okay, any future hike dreams? Many. I would like to continue with my alternate E1. More on that later. I would like to do the Kungsleden up north, and that actually was another trip that got canceled. Um, Recently, I had to cancel my Herga Kosten, or the High Coast Trail. That's what I was going to do over Easter break, and that didn't happen. But several years ago, my wife and I wanted to do Kungsleden. We were planning. We were just about to buy tickets, but then it was like a really bad year for snow, and there was like avalanche warnings and stuff. And so the rangers up there said, no, don't, postpone trips or whatever. And we never got around to like doing it. We had like set aside some days, so we did another trail instead, and it was fun. It was a really nice trip anyhow. But then of course there's Switzerland and the Alps. There's the Pyrenees in France and Spain. I have a pretty long bucket list, but those are some of the trails that I would like to do. Okay, moving on. I'm only a few comments, and I've already spoken for 8 minutes. Hopefully, I'll get through these. Yeah, I might have to limit some of my questions. All right, here we go. So, Vegan Monkey asks, "Hey Caesar, I remember you said in one of your videos you were talking about punk, hardcore punk. I want to talk about your favorite bands and more. Absolutely, I love hardcore punk. It's one of my favorite genres of music. While I enjoy lots of different kinds of music, I have hundreds of albums." On vinyl and on CD from the past. My wife and I, we both like hardcore punk and a lot of different like rock music, but I also like hip hop. I also like classical. So I have a pretty eclectic kind of mix of taste. But yes, I listen to a lot of hardcore punk. Some of my favorite bands: Bad Brains, Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat, Black Flag. So classic kind of early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, hardcore punk from the States. But I also like, a lot of UK punk as well. You have Subhumans from the UK that I really, really love. Crass, Discharge. You have, of course, The Clash. more classic kind of punk rock. But you asked about hardcore punk. I could go on and on though, and then punk in general I like. But then of course there are newer waves of hardcore, or bands that stuck around for like the whole like time. For instance, I recently, several months ago, saw Agnostic Front when they played here in Sweden. Another favorite hardcore punk band. But they put out stuff in like the 90s as well, and even more recently. But then there's bands like from the 90s, like you have Sick of It All, who was again from the 80s, but and they're still playing, and I saw them here. I really like Sick of It All. Then there uh, Integrity, sure, of like the newer kind of 90s bands, but again, I could go on and on. Um, I will say this, the more recent hardcore punk stuff, I haven't really gotten into, but I think that's just from time. Um, but I have listened to a few newer albums, like I've listened to Knocked Loose. I did listen to an album of theirs, and it was all right. It was highly recommended on some, hardcore punk forums. But yes, I digress because you have more questions, and I got to get through this. Okay, maybe your thoughts on hiking industry tourism and more political thoughts. Um, it's a kind of a broad question. I don't know how to answer that. Though I think it's interesting, that line of thought about the hiking industry, tourism, etc. All I could say was that I hope that whatever you know hiking you're doing, or whatever tourism or traveling you're doing, I hope you're trying to be um, ethical or conscious of trying not to leave no trace, of course. Try not to be exploitative. But yeah, it's kind of broad. And then you bring up politics. I could do a whole long video on politics, but obviously, one aspect of politics that I think should be a big focus is, of course, with climate change and global warming, and I think that should be a part of our political process, because things seem to be going poorly with pollution and carbon emissions and these kind of things. So I think that we should definitely try to marry politics to science and to what the scientists are saying about what's going on in the world, to try and save our environment. Yes, I'm sure that will be a bit controversial for some of you, but those are my thoughts when it comes to, I guess, hiking, tourism, and politics for now. Okay, but moving on, up the punks from France. Ah, yeah, from France. Merci, mon ami. And so I can actually recommend, if you haven't listened to them before, a French punk band that I like, that are more new. They're Oi, or street punk, a band from France called Bromure. I hope I'm pronouncing that. And now I have to write this down. I'll put a link. I'm writing down now. To put a link on Bromure to a song of theirs or something that I like. So that's a punk band from France that I happen to like at the moment. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Matt Shafter, hey buddy, how's it going? Another ultralight geek that I've given a shout out to before. I'm happy to see you here in the comments. So sorry about the trips. Yeah, thank you. I'm sure you've also canceled some trips, Mr. Matt. But now talk about those wild edibles. This is another subject that I could go on and on about. So I'm going to try to limit myself to not jump down the rabbit hole completely. It's something that I am really interested in, wild edibles, and I have been for quite some time. Other people ask about, getting into, when did I get into backpacking stuff, and I feel like this is connected, because I've always been interested in nature and the outdoors, and then when I became a teenager, I got into backpacking. More on that later, but I feel like it's always been a kind of a part of them. I've always also, like, as being interested in nature, I've also been interested in like survival, and of course, part of that will be wild edibles. I have read, several books on the subject. Here's one, for example, I just pulled off my shelf back there. This is the Army guide to the illustrated guide to wild edible plants. So I will say that if you're interested in wild edibles, of course, exercise caution and common sense. You want to get books with illustrations. You want to maybe talk to an expert in person if you want to, learn about, especially with mushrooms. I mean, they're also like poisonous plants, deadly poisonous plants, but deadly mushrooms as well. So be cautious. Now, speaking of mushrooms, that's one of my favorite wild edibles. Every year, every fall, every summer and fall, me and my family and I, we like to go out and pick wild edible. And then while I'm hiking, of course, I also like to pick wild mushrooms to add into meals. It's nice, for instance, to have ramen out on the trail and find some nice, say golden cantarell, throw them in there. Those are very yummy. So my favorite wild edibles, probably I'll give you a few I really like. Well, I already mentioned golden cantarell. I'll put a link. I'll just put a Wikipedia for those of you that are not unfamiliar with cantarells. They're excellent, excellent mushroom, and they're actually worth a pretty penny if you go to like a fancy gourmet type restaurant, um, because they don't grow. You cannot grow them like in um, indoors or anything like that. You have to get them wild. But okay, I'll put just a wiki to one of my favorites, golden cantarell. I also like porcinis or penny buns in the UK, or in Italy, porcini mushrooms. They're a member of the Boletus family, and many of those are edible. So I also like it. Here in Sweden, this is called the Karl Johan sop or Sten sop, and that's also a really good one. Then you have the plants on the plant side. I like something that grows quite commonly here in Sweden is wood sorrel, which looks like kind of very big clovers, very big three-leaf clovers, but they have a nice lemony taste to them. Then there's regular sorrel, which I'll find on occasion. Um, yes, when I was living in the United States, um, that's where I was born in the U.S. and raised there, but I've moved around quite a lot. But in the East, I lived in Pennsylvania for several years, and there I noticed that there were much more wild garlic and wild onions there. I used to eat much more of those there. Here in Sweden, I haven't found as many of them. They are around. I have found them on occasion, but yes. Okay, so yes, I've talked about wild edibles. I could do like a whole video on wild edibles. Maybe I will. We'll see. But okay. I hope that is sufficient answer. So let us carry on. So now, not sure how to pronounce this. Corpserated has a longer comment here, so let me get through these questions. Aha. I'd love to see the system that you use to rig your Bivy and your Tarp. I will put a link to the Bivy. So I've done a video before, a few on like my Bivy Tarp, some of my setups. Um, but yes, and then you go on to say, do you use drip line, for example? Yes, I do. And in fact, the drip line that I use is it kills two birds with one stone. Not only is it a drip line, but the way I rig my Bivy is that I have a guy line, just like a nylon cord, but I also have some shock cord, some like stretchy, cord that helps, so that the Bivy doesn't get ripped, or it gives me a little bit of play there, a little bit of, flexibility. And so where I make two loops where the loops are attached. There's a little bit of cordage, like shock cordage left. That turns into a natural drip line as well. I've never had a problem though, even here in rainy Sweden, with any rain coming in. A 7x9 tarp is pretty spacious for one person. In fact, you could even fit two people in there in a pinch. And then with the Bivy, in fact, I still have, but I used to use as my go-to Bivy a Dimma version with the caps had some event, because I was concerned about rain spray or drips or whatever. But actually, the coverage is sufficient that I bought another Bora Bivy without the event on the caps on the foot end and head end, because I just didn't have that much rain spray or rain problem. I can be pretty dry under that, especially considering if you go and look at one of my videos that I'll link, I use my rain poncho or my poncho tarp as like a front door, which I've talked about before at length. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out the best system. Yeah, well, good luck with that. The Bora 7x9 is the tarp that I use, and that's my favorite tarp I've ever had. I really, really like that silicone polyester. I like silicone polyester as a fabric for shelters. And Bivy, yeah, it's great. The only time I would swap out the Bivy for a net tent would be in the height of bug season. If there are lots of bugs, I would not want more space to kind of chill out in my shelter. Yes, my previous tarp had loops on the interior. Yeah, I attach my Bivy to the ridgeline. Now, and I mean, I don't have a separate ridgeline. Some people under their tarp, they have a separate line that goes under the tarp, which you can do easily enough. Just add some cord to each of the tie-out points on the ridgeline. I don't do that though. I just attach my Bivy directly to the ridgeline that goes out to wherever it's, pitched or, staked out. Also, how do you feel about the D-beat crust punk that is popular in Sweden? As I said before, I'm a big fan of punk in general, so I'm cool with that. But because I did not grow up in Sweden, I actually don't know all that much about Swedish punk. I mean, I know about a few bands. I've been to some shows, and in fact, it's funny that there's an overlap here with punk and backpacking because a friend of mine, my friend Michaela, shout out to Michaela if you ever watch this. She's a Swedish a punk who she was the lead singer of a band, Protestera, and she has gone backpacking with me and my friends, and my wife and I. We've gone out together. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Swedish crust punk. Cool with it, but I don't know much about it. Okay, and speaking of Sweden, here is Oskar Sunnesval, who has a question in Swedish. I'll try to briefly, address this in Swedish, and then I'll give a quick translation in English for you non-Swedish speakers. Hur kommer det sig att du är så extremt bra på engelska? Greetings from Sweden. Ja, Oskar, tack så mycket. Men jag har uppväxt i USA, så det är därför jag pratar så bra engelska. Jag är faktiskt också engelska lärare. Det är mitt modersmål. För att min familj kommer från Mexiko, men jag föddes i USA. Så jag har två modersmål faktiskt, spanska och engelska. Men min engelska är bättre än min spanska jämfört med min spanska. Men jag också kan prata flytande spanska. Men nu, jag har bott här i Sverige för flera år. Jag flyttade hit 2006. Min svenska är inte perfekt. Jag faktiskt vet att jag säger fel ibland. Men det duger. Min svenska duger. Så tack så mycket för frågan. So yes, quickly, English translation. I'm just explaining that my English, he asked about why is my English so good. It's because I grew up in the US. My mother tongue is English, but I also have mother tongue Spanish because my family's from Mexico. So I grew up as a child speaking both, but my English is better than my Spanish because my Spanish is, fluent, my English is more refined. I speak more academic English because I went to university, and high school, university was much more English. Yes. Okay, so tack så mycket. Thank you for that, Mr. Oscar. Now let's move. Oh boy, I forgot about this question here. Jon Smith, we're at the 20-minute mark. Will we make it? We'll see. John Schmidt has several questions, so I'm going to try and get through these quickly because I don't want my phone to mess up again. I've already done several takes. Okay. Why are using a tarp when camping is allowed in Sweden? Using a tarp and bivy gets you close to the weight of an ultralight tent. I assume it's the price for an ultralight tent and single usage of the bivy against mosquitoes. There's a loophole in Germany where you're allowed to use a tarp, but using a bivy makes it camping again. Okay, so where to begin? So yes, I'm aware that a tarp and a bivy, with the weight, you can get, either close to or slightly over that of some of the hybrid tents out there. But I'm not in it for the weight. I find the convenience of silicone polyester. I've done a whole video on fabric, so let me do a link to that. Link to fabric video where I talk about some of the pros and cons. I happen to like the benefits of using a silicone polyester tarp over, because I've had a Cuban fiber or DCF tarp before, and I have a DCF shelter, but actually the weight is not that big of a deal. And in fact, even with a silicone nylon or silicone polyester tarp and bivy, you can get close to or under. But then if you switch to Cuban, if you do DCF tarp and DCF bottom bivy, you can get under. That would be like, one of the lightest setups out there. But I like the modular nature of having a bivy and a tarp. So it's nothing to do with loopholes. Here in Sweden, you can just, it's every man's right, so you can go out and camp as you wish. So it's not the price point. It's the convenience. I like being able to use a bivy in a shelter, or just cowboy camp, or leave the bivy at home if it's not bug season. It's very flexible. It's something that I've tested quite a lot of different setups, and tarp and bivy is one that I really like for much of the year. Yes. Number 2, what would be your go-to tarp that can be bought without additional taxes and duty and high shipping costs? I would suggest then making your own tarp. In fact, I've thought about this in the past, but I'm in the unique situation in that I, in the past, have traveled to the US to visit family and friends, or family and friends from the US have visited me here in Sweden, and therefore I don't have to worry about taxes or any of that, because if I purchase something and I just bring it in my suitcase, and another benefit of ultralight backpacking equipment is that it's light and easy to fit in your suitcase if you're traveling, so no big deal. But if I had to, replace it and I couldn't, if I, had to buy it here under quarantine, for example, I would look into buying fabric and make my own tarp. That's what I would do. I would look into getting a high quality silicone polyester with a good hydrostatic head, over 2000, and I'd make a nice 7x9 tarp. Okay, I saw you have a lot of American products. Do you buy them? I think I've answered that question. Yeah, it's when I'm traveling or friends or family are traveling. That is how I've gotten most of my gear. Though there have been a few times that I simply didn't want to wait and I did pay the customs fee. But yeah, that was the minority of the time. All right, I meditate myself and find meditating very similar to hiking. What are the similarities and dissimilarities for you, and do they cancel each other out to the point where you don't feel the need to meditate while you hike? I've discussed this before, so check out the videos that I'm going to link. But just to reiterate that I feel you can hike and meditate at the same time, though I don't always, want. I'm not always willing and able to meditate while I'm hiking. Perhaps I'm thinking about something where I'm, there's like a philosophical question I'm grappling with, or just a personal thing I'm thinking about something, or whatever. And so I want to think. Well, but then there are times when I'm meditating while I'm hiking and I'm not thinking, or I'm doing my best to exercise that patience, which I talked about before, and clearing my mind as best as I can. Yeah. So it depends on what you mean by canceling each other out. Sometimes I do one or the other. Sometimes I do both at the same time. All right. Lots of questions. Thanks for that. So just a few more. I think we'll be able to get it under. We'll go over the 30-minute mark, but not by much. Hopefully my phone won't crap out on me. Deb Smith asks, did you backpack growing up? Yes, I did. As I said before, I've always been interested in nature and the outdoors. And as soon as I was a teenager, like 15, 16, I immediately went out camping with my friends using the cheap hand-me-down gear. My father was in the military, so I had like a Army Alice pack, and I threw like canteen and heavy crappy equipment, but I went out anyways, and I had fun. But it was not, the gear was not fun or pleasant. Yeah, so I have been into backpacking, wilderness backpacking since then. So this is I'm 39 now. I'll be 40 this year. So this is over 20 years, approaching 25 years. Did you practice meditation early on in life? Yes, that's also something I've been interested in. Just through meeting different people, because I've traveled a lot. I've been exposed to different cultures and different people, and meditation is something that I was just aware of earlier. And after trying it, I got frustrated with it. Of course, I think everybody, when you first try to learn how to meditate, it can be, at least for me, it was very rough, frustrating to try and get into that zone and all that, and then have calm mind. So on and off, I did it for a while in my youth, but then when I became more of an adult, I I did a seminar on meditation in the past, and I've read books on it, and then I would listen to or watch videos on it on YouTube later on and everything. Yeah, so it's something I've been doing on and off since I was preteen even. Just interested in the origins of your hobbies. Yeah, well, now you know. Glad to see you guys are safe. Thanks, and thank you. I hope you and yours are safe as well. All right, Jens Weerf. Again, apologies for pronunciation. He has a few questions. He says, are you still pursuing the alternate E1? Yes, I am. In fact, I was hoping, my wife and I were hoping to continue to hike the alternate E1 in May next month, but obviously that's probably not going to happen. I'm almost done. I'm like 90 maybe percent done or so, hiking the whole thing and documenting the whole thing on my blog. I'll put a link in the description for those of you, and let me write this down so I don't forget. So yes, if you're not familiar, I've put together my own alternate E1 hiking route, because after hiking the entire Swedish official E1, I enjoyed it, but there were some problems with it, and so I came up with my own route, which I will humbly assert is better for a variety of reasons. So you could read about that on my blog. what are your thoughts on the Mountain Laurel Designs Hell Pack? I like it. It looks good, but well, a deal breaker for me is the lack of side pockets. I love to have side pockets to keep water bottles, and so I've tried many different combinations of, you know, hip pouches and shoulder pouches for water bottles and this and that. I've tried many combinations, but side pockets are, that's what I prefer. So I probably would not get the Hell Pack. I would stick to my Burn, which is right behind me, my favorite backpack I've ever had. Though I will say too that the camo, the new fabric that Mountain Laurel Designs is using with the camo looks pretty cool, and it also seems to have added durability. So that's an interesting choice. I didn't notice that until the Hell Pack came out, and I saw that that was an option there. Yeah. What is your take on solo hiking adventures when you have young children at home? Well, when they were younger, they're now 8 and 10. When they were younger, I didn't want to go out, as long. I would do shorter section hikes. But as they're getting older and older now, I'm able to go for longer. In fact, that's why over Easter I was going to go on like a week-long solo hike of the High Coast Trail. But also, when I don't go solo, we go out as a family. My whole family likes being out in the nature. So there are times I will go on short section hikes with one or more members of my family, or long. Even my wife and I, we do longer. But that you asked about children, so yeah, I guess I should stick to that. Okay, we're over the 30-minute mark, but we're gonna make it now. Thanks, Jens. I hope I've answered your questions. And now, last but not least, this is from Andy McCavish. It says, "Hi, Caesar. When it comes to deciding to buy new gear, what goes into your decision? Is it just cost slash weight, or do you also use things like how much you will use the item?" Absolutely. I'm one of those geeks that gets a bit obsessive with gear, because I'm so passionate about this. I've been doing it for so long. I actually am oddly patient with my gear. I guess maybe this goes back to another benefit of meditation. Maybe I become a more patient person, but I do quite a bit of research before buying a new piece of gear. If you are familiar with Reddit, if you are on the subreddit, the ultralight subreddit on Reddit, that's a mouthful. I'm often asking questions. Before I bought, for example, a silicone polyester tarp, I asked everybody what their experiences were with silicone polyester, because it's the newer of the fabrics on the market when it comes to ultralight, shelters. So I do quite a bit of thought and planning before I buy a new piece of gear. I think another thing that influences that, trying to be as informed as possible and do research, is that when I got into ultralight backpacking, I had gone back to university and I was like studying, working part-time, also was a father. It was a period in my life and my family's life when we were kind of broke. And so before I would, put down money on a piece of gear, it was more of an investment. So I wanted to make sure I'd be getting my money's worth. I also like to buy things, used if I can. There are many times I've bought things. I've had very good experiences buying used on forums. Yeah, so there are lots of things that go into it. It's not just cost or weight or, but yes, definitely I want to be able to, my goal is to be able to buy things. I've said before in other videos that I consider myself, or I try to be a minimalist, right? Hence why I like to do these videos very simply, because I don't have much time or energy to put into post-production at all. But I want to buy pieces of gear that I'll just run into the ground, that I'll use and use and use until I need to replace them. But yes, of course, I consider weight and cost quite a bit. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I guess the short answer would be yes, I do consider quite a lot of things. Okay, we're approaching the 35-minute mark. Thankfully, it looks like this take is successful. My phone's not freaking out on me. I hope this was interesting, or I hope maybe you got to know more about me, or like maybe learn something about, some of the things I talked about. As I said before, I could go on and on and on lots of these different topics. So thanks again for asking. Perhaps if there's interest, I've enjoyed answering these questions. Perhaps if there's interest in the future, I can do another video. So if you have more questions, or if you want more clarification on something I've said, put a comment below. What I will not do, I won't answer the comment in the comments. What I'll try to do is see if there's enough interest, enough things to work with for part 2, like a answer where I the same format where I go ahead and look through the comments and answer them. We'll see what happens. All right. All right. So thanks. Stay safe out there. Stay home. And goodbye.